So very warm welcome to all of you from my side. My name is Ana Peric. I'm the member of the board of ISOCARP and director for awards, and I will be your session chair today. It's my great pleasure to have you all today with us, and also very warm welcome to all the people in the audience. Just a couple of words about the session today. So about the agenda and something about a bit of the substance of ISOCARP Awards. So we will host the winners in 3 categories. So all the winners for the edition 2021. So first we will see the winning entries of the ISOCARP Award for Excellence, which, just a brief of history, was established in 2005 by the past president, then President Alfonso Vergara, and it is given for the promotion of the excellency in the planning practice. So it is given for different spatial plans, urban designs, different tools, instruments, softwares in the field of spatial and urban regional planning, which, as I mentioned, are there to better the place we live. The second and central part of our session today actually will be devoted to the Gerd Albers Award. Gerd Albers Award is given in the honor of the Gerd Albers, one of the co-founders and past president of ISOCARP, and it was established in 1999 and is devoted to the ISOCARP members for their academic achievements. So it's given for the best book, article, and different project reports. And last but not least, of course, we bestow the achievements of the future planning professionals, so the students in the field of spatial and urban planning and all related disciplines. And back in 2016, this award was established, and we are very happy to see the number of entries growing in each next year. So something about the award for excellence. So this year we had a record number of entries received, 22 in total. So it was never like this before. And for that reason, I'm particularly grateful to the jury that made an extremely tough, difficult job to actually evaluate all these entries of extremely high quality this year. And so my particular thanks go to Tamara Maricic from Serbia, Sharing Gambazo from Romania, Charles Edouard Delpierre from Belgium, and of course to Kate Holmquist, who is also the deputy chair of ISOCARP Scientific Committee, who was chairing this jury and provided all the coordination and jury evaluations. And with this in mind, this year, out of 22 entries, we gave 5 awards in total, so 2 grand awards and 3 merit awards. And the first Grand Award for Excellence 2021 goes to the Jiangsu Provincial Department of Housing and Urban Rural Development in collaboration with Jiangsu Planning and Design Group for the project Guideline for Regeneration of the Old Communities in Jiangsu. According to the jury report, this entry was recognized as a unique people-centered co-creation planning and governance model that incorporates active resident participation in all phases of planning, participatory design, construction, and eventual self-governance. So I invite you all now to enjoy in the video which was present to us before the session. Mario, back over to you.
China, Grand Canal, Jiangsu Section, National Cultural Park, Construction and Protection Plan. This is the Qinghe Hub, located in Huaiyan City, Jiangsu Province, China. Multiple water systems converge here. It is an important node of the Golden Waterway for shipping in eastern China, and it also functions as a water conservancy project on the eastern route of China's south to north water diversion project. Meanwhile, Qinghe Hub is an important part of the World Cultural Heritage, the Grand Canal of China, representing the pinnacle of hydraulic engineering during the agricultural civilization. But now these sites are concealed in the surrounding villages, and it is difficult to see the glory of the past. In this context, Jiangsu Province has compiled a special plan to explore approaches for overall protection of large-scale linear cultural heritage and value presentation of the Grand Canal Jiangsu section, which is 790 kilometers long, rich in heritage resources, and still in operation. Through the evaluation of cultural resource abundance, 3 spatial forms are constructed, which are connected in series with water and land tour routes to form a network-like display pattern. Refine the 4 main lines of cultural value. Link with the space display system, coordinate the display themes, and clarify the main points of cultural interpretation. Design the logo and identification system to offer the visitor a unified visual and psychological vision of the scattered exhibition space. Put forward the concept of online Grand Canal National Cultural Park, which will be constructed, linked, and displayed together with offline physical parks. Emphasize the unified renewal of the canal site and the surrounding area. Build landscape attractions that reflect the local humanistic characteristics and create a diversified space for public cultural activities. Innovate the form of folk activities and shape a cultural display method that combines the public space of the canal with folk festivals. Coordinate the space requirements of various functions and promote the coordinated and symbiosis of heritage protection, waterway transportation, and ecological conservation. Establish an organization mechanism that is coordinated at the provincial level and supported by cities and counties, and through building consensus, attract enterprises and social organizations to participate. This is a new attempt to protect, display, and utilize large-scale linear cultural heritage. We hope that the public will re-embrace the Grand Canal through the construction of these cultural spaces. There will be a new era cultural scroll flowing on the ground in the near future.
Okay, so we will skip some talk from the winners this time, yeah. But then we proceed with the next Grand Award winner 2021, which goes to SpaceSyntax for their master plan on Nur-Sultan 2030. According to jury evaluation, it takes a strategic, outcome-focused and evidence-based approach to planning and climate extremes in Kazakhstan, and is centered on densification and improvement over greenfield development. A multidisciplinary team, design team, and stakeholder engagement actually enrich this plan in terms of defining planning methodologies like urban modeling and scenario testing. So I give it over to you, Ed, please go ahead.
And Mario, you're going to share the video, I think, aren't you?
SpaceSyntax worked on the 2030 Nur-Sultan master plan. We led a multidisciplinary team, and that team included expedition engineering, who looked at energy and waste, Gustafsson, Porter and Bowman, who looked at landscape and public realm, and it included mobility and chain, who looked at issues around transport. We took a very specific approach to the master plan, and we basically approached it in 4 stages. First stage, we started to ask what the city should be like in 2030. Then we started to analyse what it's like now, how close to that 2030 vision it currently is. Using that analysis, we can then decide and we can identify how to change it. And then finally, we can test how those changes work. So in terms of understanding what the city should be like in 2030, we engaged with stakeholders, we reviewed policy, we looked at international best practice. And what came out of that was that the city, to meet its targets, needs to become livable, sustainable and healthy. We could take the existing city and we can compare it to the vision that we want to create. So we looked at the performance of the city, how livable it was, how sustainable and how healthy. But really importantly, we could analyse the existing city systems, the infrastructure and the transport to see why the city was or wasn't meeting its target. Now at the moment, Nur-Sultan has things that a lot of global cities have, but it needs to go through a second stage of development to become more human scale. The third stage was to understand how to change the city. We can use our early analysis to target specific changes to exact locations. We know from analysing the city that it's big and low density, and that makes it feel very quiet and inactive. And to prevent any further sprawl, we wanted to concentrate any population growth within the boundary of the current city. And this will help to improve and intensify parts of it. We needed to add bridges in particular places, and that will help reduce congestion on the existing bridges. And we also needed to identify the best places to accommodate new jobs. Finally, we needed to work out how to connect the new jobs to the new population. last stage of the master plan was to try to analyse the proposal and understand if the changes worked in the way they were meant to. We took the model that we made earlier on, we added the proposals, added the new project, and then we reanalysed it. Now the master plan puts in place the conditions for the city to become livable, sustainable and healthy. It makes it more walkable, it reduces the dependence that people have on private cars, and it puts in place strategies for the city to meet its emissions and recycling targets.
Impressive. And do you want to add a couple of words for your team?
Yes, thank you very much. If I could just take a couple of minutes to say some words. Thank you very much. I'm really honoured to receive this on behalf of SpaceSyntax. I feel really privileged to have led the project. It was personally really enjoyable. And I think what was particularly important is the way that we approached it and the focus, which was about improving and intensifying the city within its existing footprint, looking at the city as a system of systems, integrating systems around the needs of people, using technology to understand the links between the systems that we can design and the outcomes that they enable. Using this technology as part of a process to engage with people, define and agree outcomes, measure performance, tailor interventions and test their impact. And I think this approach is really important because we need to think really carefully about the way we plan, design and develop cities over the next few years. The construction industry is a big contributor to global emissions, use of finite resources, loss of habitat. And we also know the design of cities affects how, where and why people move around. And this creates secondary impacts, not just in terms of energy use and emissions, but also the health and well-being of the inhabitants. I think as a group of professionals, we can influence these outcomes, and we have a responsibility to work really carefully and to use approaches like this to avoid negative impacts. And it's really good to see some of the tracks at this conference, especially around urban design and health. There's a really big group of people who've put lots of time and effort into this project, and I'd like to quickly thank them now. In Kazakhstan, on the client side, Askat Sadorov put in a huge amount of work explaining to a number of mayors the need for a master plan, setting up the design competition to select a master planner, and making sure the master plan actually happened. Tolkien Sagalova, Igor Mosbanova, they were also really, really helpful in making it happen. In terms of delivering the project, we had a really good collaborative working relationship with our wider consultant team, and this included Judith Sykes and Andrew Kamarnicki at Expedition Engineering, Neil Porter, Mary Bowman, and Gunther Gaglioni at Gustafsson Porter and Bowman, also Federico Paralotto, Catherine Pinter, and Mirko Fanzoe at Mobility and Chain. And finally, definitely no means least, the SpaceSyntax team, who put in a huge amount of work during really, really significant disruption over the last year or so. So I'd like to thank especially Oscar McDonald, Sandra Wilmot, Jose Luis Krug, Eduardo Rico, Godfrey Chikabiro, and a few people who have left, moved on, Abhi Manuacharya, Joanna Kolovu, and Mariette Bison-Bina. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ted. Thanks a lot. Excellent. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Congrats once again to you and of course, entire team of SpaceSyntax.
Thank you.
So now we are happy actually to proceed with the next winners in the category of Merit Award. And it's my special pleasure actually to welcome the representatives of Oriental Consultants Global for the branch in Japan for their project on mobility development strategy for the North Hanoi Smart City. According to the jury report, this entry boldly goes beyond the multimodal visions to present a model for zero-emission transportation and walkable urbanism, using potential of smart technologies presenting artificial intelligence and smart systems. Please, floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Connery Cepeda, and I'm with Oriental Consultants Global. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Great. So I'm on behalf of Mr. Junji Shibata, who is actually in Doha as we speak, and he's in the audience today. I was part of the team that put together the mobility development strategy for the North Hanoi Smart City project in Vietnam, and it is my pleasure to introduce this project to you. And so first, I should say that OC Global has completed projects in more than 150 countries and provides holistic smart city solutions across several sectors, including housing, renewable energy, waste management, health, governance, education, and mobility, which is what we're talking about today. So Vietnam continues to grow at a rapid pace, including its capital city, Hanoi, who created the North Hanoi Master Plan to 2030 to accommodate this rapid increase in population and economic activities. However, because of this, Hanoi is struggling with traffic congestion and air pollution due to the increasing demand for cars and motorbikes. So the North Hanoi Smart City project is a mixed-use transit-oriented development located between the city center and the international airport, along with the planned extension for Hanoi Metro Line 2. If you'll excuse me. So it's a smart city with a development vision that should minimize private car use while still providing a high level of comfort along with a healthy lifestyle. So for this smart mobility strategy, we came up with a roadmap which consisted of 9 tasks. After collecting all available data on transport, land use, and infrastructure, as well as smart mobility technologies, the second task was then to agree to the strategic mobility goals coupled with key performance. The vision and mission statements of the mobility strategy conveys the message that the North Hanoi Smart City will aim for safe, green, smart, and timely access within and outside the smart city. These goals can then be achieved by implementing various smart mobility technologies, ranging from embedded sensors that collect mobility data to smartphone applications that can enhance one's travel experience. Concurrently, we provided a comprehensive overview of shared mobility, which these services will reduce the need for private ownership of a vehicle while still providing seamless travel. Next, a macro simulation transport model was then developed to understand the expected traffic conditions within the smart city and identify potential areas of concern based on the proposed road network. We did some scenario testing to estimate changes in traffic when various mobility strategies are adopted. These next 3 tasks were then worked on in tandem. For public transport, recommendations were provided for high flexibility, high frequency, and high quality public transport service. For the road network, we provided designs for streets to be smart, green, and complete streets. And for parking, recommendations were provided to encourage shared mobility and clean EV vehicles. This is then all compiled into the Mobility Development Strategy report that incorporates further recommendations of planning concepts, including the 15-minute city. We then approached this mobility strategy considering 5 key issues: Hanoi's humid subtropical climate, emissions-free mobility and living, green sustainability and climate change resiliency, innovative smart city components or the integration of intelligent systems utilizing Vietnamese, Japanese, and international technologies, and connectivity between the project and the surrounding area in order to deliver a successful transit-oriented development with the extension of Hanoi Metro Line 2. This mobility strategy, we approach this vision from an international best practice perspective through the consideration of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, along with the local context of the 2030 Master Plan and the North Hanoi Smart City Vision and Mission to establish the following mobility themes: safe and healthy lifestyle, connectivity and accessibility, clean and green mobility, convenient and inclusive mobility services, attractive and prosperous economy, and competitive and innovative technologies. And so in order for the client to better understand the functionality and impacts of each of these technologies, we organized an in-person charrette workshop. We did take proper social distancing protocols, of course. That in addition to the visual design, the charrette also included a storytelling component to encourage all of the stakeholders to consider how residents and visitors will interact with each of the technologies in their daily lives. Then we did a multi-criteria cost-benefit evaluation that to implement 30 smart mobility technologies, we then grouped them into 3 packages. We named them the Eco Design Package, the Convenient Tech Package, and the Deluxe Package. Everything from smart poles with sensors and EV buses to personal rapid transit and delivery robots. These technologies can work together to achieve smart streets that provide intelligent service, green streets that serve environmental sustainability, and complete streets that work for all ages and abilities. So the future is indeed uncertain. So how can planning and planners possibly approach such uncertainty? Well, based on this case study, we strongly believe that implementing the following strategies can result in a winning project: clear visioning and strategy development, participatory planning across disciplines and sectors, and a multi-criteria analysis considering various benefits and risks. So in conclusion, we are confident that the mobility development strategy for the North Hanoi Smart City, once implemented, will contribute to the paradigm shift of people's lifestyles, as well as the mobility development towards sustainable and prosperous community of Hanoi, Vietnam, and the global community. I want to give a sincere thank you to the team, to the OC Global team, as well as Rambo Vertex, as well as to all of you for your attention, and be sure to visit our website for more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Connery. Thanks a lot for your comprehensive strategy. And I'm actually eager to see that all the winning entries deeply rely on something that we actually heard yesterday in a keynote presentation, that it is not only about using the technical skills and tools, but also relying on people and people interpretation of the place, which is finally made for them. So I'm grateful really to see this in different cases. Thanks a lot. And now we proceed with the second merit award, which was given to the Wuhan Planning and Design Institute for the post-pandemic revitalization plan of Wuhan. According to the jury report, the plan rethinks the community resilience, livability, economic vitality in the context of urban pandemics, and presents a holistic plan for establishing a smart city planned around the health infrastructure. And I'm very eager to see actually how Wuhan is answering and responding to the global pandemic that we are all aware started actually in this area. So Mario, I think I will hand over to you for a video.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am greatly honored to represent our team to share the project with international planners today. Firstly, please let me express my gratitude for Dr. Shi Nan, Deputy Director of Urban Planning Society for China, and Mr. Sheng Hongtao, Director of Wuhan Natural Resources and Planning Bureau, for their generous help and support during this project. Also, I want to thank ISOCARP and the awards jury for your efforts. The COVID-19 is the most serious pandemic in this century, which, according to UN Secretary General Guterres, is the worst global crisis since World War II. From the first local case of COVID-19 identified in Wuhan in December 2019, to the end of Wuhan's lockdown, the national government and Central Committee of CPC insisted on putting people's safety and health in the first place and lead us to win the decisive battle against the COVID-19. The sudden outbreak of COVID-19 caused great negative impacts in various aspects and also revealed the shortage and deficiency of city governance. In order to effectively implement a set of supporting policies from central government, we collaborate with national experts and relevant departments to conduct holistic evaluation and reflection on the pandemic's influence. This revitalization plan is a comprehensive action plan that incorporates planning interventions, policies, schemes, and technical standards to realize the recovery and revitalization of Wuhan's economic, society, space, facility, and confidence. Based on the key concepts of people-centered resilience and health in the post-pandemic era, the plan set a three-step goal and framework, that is, safety, health, and prosperity. To achieve these goals, the plan proposes 4 strategies. Firstly, rebuild self-contained community. Based on people-centered perspective, the plan seeks to analyze both spatial and governance problems of communities. By implementing spatial and management improvement to realize self-contained community governance step by step, so as to build a solid front line for safeguarding people's health and well-being. Secondly, revitalize local community. Identify the threats and opportunities of Wuhan's economic development and proposes multiple measures in respect of attractiveness enhancement to promote the city's prosperity. Thirdly, reshape Health City. Based on the goals and demands of Health City, we apply space reshaping strategy at multiple dimensions, making Wuhan a leading global health city. Fourthly, reinvent Smart City. Fully grasp the development opportunities of Smart City and focus on innovative-driven reform to enhance sustainable urbanization. The revitalization construct a systematic planning framework of 1 + 5 + X, providing a reference for post-pandemic reconstruction of megacities. 1 stands for the framework of COVID-19 evaluation and post-pandemic plan, aiming at in-depth analysis of the shortage and deficiency reviewed by the pandemic, and come up with the goals, strategies, approaches, and action plans, and also provide suggestions to amend the city's long-term development plan. 5 stands for 5 specialized plans. By evaluating and identifying the problems caused by COVID-19, the relevant specialized plans are upgraded accordingly. X stands for a series of action plans, policies, and guidelines, aiming at building a supporting system of public health security, livable built environment, and diverse city functions. After 1 year's implementation and construction, Wuhan has initiated many projects. Firstly, according to the safety goal of 2022, the renovation of 454 old communities will start in the next 2 years. In the long term, Wuhan will insist on expand public engagement and modify the management system to continue upgrading the governance capacity of local communities in order to improve people's sense of belonging and well-being. Secondly, according to the health goal of 2025, a series of hospitals and medical research facilities will be built. In July 2020, Wuhan launched the construction of 5 new hospitals and 2 national medical centers. 4 of them has been completed. Thirdly, according to the prosperity goal of 2035, Wuhan will launch a series of park and ecological space development to protect and enhance the city's natural environment. And the strict land use density controls will be applied to relieve the pressure of central cities' overcrowdedness and lead a more balanced population distribution. At the Global Health Summit 2021, Chinese President Xi Jinping addressed that, facing the pandemic, we must insist on the philosophy of building a public health community for mankind. Wuhan, as a megacity with more than 10 million people, which was severely impacted by COVID-19 in the first place, strived to make a holistic and innovative plan to guide the post-pandemic revitalization and high-quality development. We firmly believe collaborative planning with people-centered value will play an irreplaceable positive role in the battle against the pandemic in cities all around the world. Thank you.
Thanks very much to the Wuhan Design and Planning Institute. And now we proceed with the last Merit Award for Excellence winner for this year, which goes to the university, Tsinghua University School of Architecture, in cooperation with Beijing Tsinghua Tongheng Urban Planning and Design Institute. So sorry for my Chinese. On the topic of participatory community planning through socio-spatial co-production. New Qinghe Experiment in Beijing, China. So according to the jury evaluation, this multidisciplinary university student investigation explores grassroots community development, engagement, and participatory planning methodologies, which is, as we saw, the core of the urban planning nowadays. So Mario, is it over to you now?
No, actually, we will have a live presentation. Is that correct, Liu?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Please
You
go
can
ahead.
share your screen now.
Yeah, I will share my screen.
Yeah. Yes, we can see your screen. Sorry, Leo, is this a video with audio? Because we are not hearing anything.
Yeah, that should be the voice in it, but I don't know what's the trouble. Oh, okay.
We are still not able to hear your audio, unfortunately.
So you can hear the voice.
No, actually not. I will present your presentation, right? I will share my screen. So it will be from my laptop.
Maybe.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
No problem, it's fine.
I will start the share. Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
Participatory community planning through socio-spatial co-production. New Qinghe Experiment in Beijing, China. Since 2014, an interdisciplinary group from Tsinghua University has launched the New Qinghe Experiment, a social experiment on innovation governance at the grassroots in the new urban Qinghe. Among them, our team assembles teachers and students in the fields of urban planning, landscape architecture, and sociology, working together with designers and social workers from local organizations. We have many engaged in participatory community planning, giving full play to socio-spatial co-production mechanism and integrating spatial renovation with community revitalization to improve quality of local life and build more sustainable communities. 1. Content and context of the project. Qinghe Jiedao, an administrative subdivision under the jurisdiction of Haidian District, is located outside the North Fifth Ring Road of Beijing. It covers an area of over 9 square kilometers, with a permanent resident population of 145,000. Evolving from a rural town, this area may be regarded as a typical ordinary urban neighborhood social space, with a high concentration of diverse neighborhood communities, epitomizing Beijing's rapid and drastic social-spatial transformations over the past 2 decades. Based on the key issue definition as the underdevelopment of public sphere in both spatial and social aspects, the project takes the main path of participatory community planning, displaying the mechanism of a two-way social-spatial production to develop close-knit, harmonious, and sustainable neighborhood communities. The whole process may be divided into two phases. Phase 1, that is from 2014 to 17, mainly focused on working in pilot communities to improve community environment and facilitate vitality at the grassroots through professional support and community engagement. The work includes optimizing grassroots governance structure, promoting community assets cultivation and community empowerment, and facilitating community participation in public space renovation. Phase 2, that is from 2018 till now. We turned to institutional innovation at the Jiedao level to promote participatory community planning on a broader scale. The work includes innovating community planner system and nurturing interdisciplinary groups, formulating district regeneration plan, and improving assessment mechanism, and standardizing community planning process and promoting implementation of distinctive projects. 2. Main features of the project. The project tries to focus on 3 key features as intervention tools. The first is community, empowering community as a bridge, connecting society, gated residential compounds, households, and individuals. The second is public sphere, emphasizing improvement of physical public space and community participation in social public affairs. The third is participatory planning, using participatory planning approach and mobilizing employment and residence groups to participate in placemaking. Finally, to build Qinghe communities with happiness, inclusiveness, as well as social, economic, and ecological sustainability. 3. Expectations and future projects. In the future, the project will continue to advance, especially in the following aspects. The first is optimization of consultation mechanism. The second is promotion of grassroots empowerment. The third is improvement of public sphere. Especially take the community garden network as an important green link between blocks, gated residential compounds, and families to activate the old neighborhoods. 4. Conclusions. The practice of community planning in Qinghe contributes a deeper understanding of the 3 values related to planning. First is the compound value attribute of community as a place. The second is the special value of planning as a socio-spatial co-production process. Third is the value of a community planner team as an incubator and a facilitator. Only when the third-party groups of outsiders withdraw can the community maintain a well-ordered pattern of sustainable development, which may be regarded as a really good community planning. Finally, our sincere thanks to the partner teams. Without you, years of persistence and today's remarkable achievements would not have been possible. Thank you.
Yuyan, thanks so much to you and your team. For me, it is really important to see that actually we're speaking about the place-based approach, the planning as facilitation, above the all smart tools, participatory mechanisms, as a hard skills that we usually have seen to date in these awards projects. So I'm really glad to see this back into the nature, back to the roots actually of the planning profession, and putting planning as planning for people and with people again. So thanks a lot again to all the winners. Also, thanks a lot to all the submitters, to all the applicants for this 2021 edition of the Award for Excellence Award. And with this part, I would like to close this part of the session and to proceed further with the Gerd Albers Award winners. When speaking about the Gerd Albers Award, so once again, it is an award for the academic achievements of ISOCARP members. This year, we received 14 entries, 3 books, 2 project reports, 9 journal articles. And in this very moment, I want to express my deepest gratitude to my colleagues from the scientific committee, Duško Bogunović as the chair of the scientific committee, Ulrich Grote, Henrico Simarmata, and Yunyan Yang. So once again, all the members of the scientific committee who actually devoted their free time and energy to evaluate these excellent entries that we received this year. So the job was not that easy to make a proper decision, but we are lucky that we actually can claim that we made it in a joint way. So we jointly agreed that the award for the best book 2021, Gerd Albers Award 2021 for the best book goes to Diru Tadani for his seminal piece, I would say, Reflections on Seaside, Muses, Ideas, Influences, and New and Future Projects. According to the jury report, this is an extremely rich, well-structured and comprehensive piece on the historical development, but also on the contemporary challenges on the urban design of seaside in Florida. Following Diru's work through a decade now, I can claim that it is really a masterpiece, a mature work, which actually combines his previous influences in both the conceptual exploration and also practical experiments done in seaside. So it's a 3rd book in a row, but actually the most mature. So Diru, I give a couple of minutes to you to lead us through this masterpiece in terms also of its volume. So it's 850 pages. How to say, book. So it was a tough issue to actually go through this, but we all as jury members enjoyed. So Diru, floor is yours.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me go to full screen. Okay, great. Are you seeing the full screen?
Not
Yes?
the full screen, actually. Not the full screen.
Okay, let me just switch. It's having 2 screens of swap. Okay, how's that?
Yes, great. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you projects globally. So, one's internal looking and one is external looking, and also identifying several projects that would not have happened if it hadn't been for Seaside, including the Prince of Wales's project Boundary. So in 1980, just to take you back, in 1980, there were several crises that we were facing. They're the same crises that we're facing today. It's just unfortunate that we're still dealing with the same issues with very little progress globally, with population, the burgeoning population increase, affordable housing, the fact that we're running out of oil and we're depleting resources at a rapid rate, also public health caused by all sorts of factors, mostly the degradation of the environment, and finally the biggest of them all, climate change. In America, at least, and you find this, this is the sprawl of the development that's been proliferating all across America for the last 70 years now. And the different types of sprawl that are occurring. You can see a high-rise version of sprawl outside of Paris or any of the Chinese cities. It's the same thing. It's this monoculture of single-family houses or housing alone without the attributes of urbanism. For a lot of us, this diagram that Leon Krier did in the early 1980s was a way for us to understand what was wrong with the kind of places that were being built since World War II to 1980. And what Leon's is showing us in this drawing, the series of drawings, is a couple things. The first drawing on the upper left of the screen is showing you the public realm. All cities are defined by their institutions and their public spaces, and that consists of monuments, streets, and squares. That's the public realm. That belongs to everybody. The middle one is the private realm, which is ownership, and it is the stuff that fills in. It's the fabric of the city. And when you put those two things together, the institutional or the civic realm and the public realm, you get, the private realm rather, you get the true city. And what you find is a lot of spaces left over, which are these squares, and the streets are the connector between those squares. So that Leon did that drawing, and this is the condition that happened, at least in the American context. In 1950, we had suburbia after World War II, and we moved housing out of the city to the suburbs. In 1960, we moved shops and retail, and the mall was invented, and that moved to the suburbs. By 1970, the schools, because of the large requirement for playing fields, they moved out to the suburbs. And then finally, in the 1980s, the office parks were developed, and workplaces moved to the suburbs. So the idea was whether we could take all those ingredients, which were normally segregated by zoning, and combine them into one cohesive town plan. The way that was done was through what now is popularly known as a form-based code. The land was divvied up into 8 classes, and each class had this graphic code. It was a one-page code that told you what the building must do. Instead of zoning code that tells you what you cannot do, this was a prescriptive code that said what you must do in terms of your frontage, where parking can be, etc. And here's a kind of plan of Seaside with all those 8 categories where they actually occurred. These are the diagrams. On the lower left, you see the private realm. Those are the houses or the properties. On the right side, you see the public realm, which is reserved in perpetuity for never to be built upon. The upper right, you see the public spaces, again, which would never be built upon. And the upper left shows that Seaside picks up the fabric of the existing town that was to its east, Seagrove, and that same grid is really kind of continued through, so it seamlessly connects with the towns around. Here was a piece of land as it was in 1980. These are the 5 protagonists. Leon Krier provided the kind of conceptual framework. Robert and Darrell Davis were the town founders, and Andres Swanee and Elizabeth Zyberg were the master planners. If they had followed conventional zoning of the time, the project would have looked like the lower left image, where everything was segregated, but in fact, the Seaside plan combined the same ingredients, those 4 ingredients, into one cohesive plan. Okay. I had the opportunity when I first learned about Seaside in the early 80s to test the code, the form-based code, and this model was built with first and second year students, and hence it permitted us to tighten up the code, the form-based code, to see what the town might actually look like if built out. Seaside then spawned the development of the formation of the Congress for the New Urbanism, and you can go to the website and cnu.org and see more about the Congress. And this is what Seaside looks like today. It's pretty much built out, excepting for a few sites. And it's mostly a resort town, but what it's really, you should look at Seaside for is its contribution to ideas about planning. And there are many ideas that started and were experimented on in Seaside, both economic and form-based and social, that are very prominent in the way we build today. So a lot of those ideas actually germinated in Seaside prior to what we're currently doing or the planning profession is doing. So it's good to kind of go back and look at how things started, what the conditions were in 1980, and what has happened over the last 40 years in the planning profession. Thank you. And I have been very glad to say that my last 3 books have all won awards. So I'm thankful to ISOCARP for recognizing my work. And that's it. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhiru. Thanks a lot. So it's a really an impressive piece of work, and I like your historical approach there. Actually, this is something which I appreciate a lot, because only from the lessons from the past we can learn how to improve future development, and I think it is extremely highlighted in this volume.
Thank you.
So now, just to be on time, so I proceed quickly to the award, Geldarves Award for the best article, which this year go to Helena Cermeño for the article published in the journal Urban Planning, and article is entitled "Living and Planning on the Edge: Unraveling Conflict and Claim Making in Peri-Urban Lahore, Pakistan." So according to the jury, it is an article which skillfully combines the concept of assemblage and access theory, which is very important in a contemporary literature in the field of urban planning, and tackles the problem of power prevailing over the rule of law. Using the in-depth qualitative methodological strategy and depicting the case of Lahore, the second largest city in Pakistan, the paper provides actually the results which Helena is now going to explore us deeper, but this paper is actually something which reflects upon the 1 billion population over the globe. That's why the results are not only locally possible for local implementation, but has much more global added value. So Helena, in this moment, I give the floor to you. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Anna. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, first of all, thanks to Anna, to Mario, and to the whole jury for the award, and for kind of for inviting me here today as well. It feels really good after so many difficult months for all of us, and difficult working situations, to have some kind of recognitions for the effort and the time we invested. So thanks for that. Okay. Let's see if that works. There we go. So I will try my best to navigate you through the article. I already apologize for not being able to do it in 7 minutes, so I will keep it to 7 minutes, but we'll leave some ingredients and some insights for you to read in the article anyways, which I will not be able to cover. So the research on living and planning on the edge in the city of Lahore deals with the urban development in the periphery of the city of Lahore, which is, as Anna said, the second largest city in Pakistan, the capital of Punjab, with a population which is larger than 11 million inhabitants. The paper explores or exposes actually one of the key findings, the exclusionary effects of planning and development trends, and the underlying unequal power relations that shape these tendencies in Lahore. And as you said, Anna, they can also extrapolate it to many other cities of the world. And in this particular case, I've particularly focused among 3 main actors, which are representative of these urban transformation trends, which are involved in urban development, which is the army, interestingly enough, the public authorities, private real estate companies, and of course, last but not least, the local rural communities, the residents of the villages, which are affected by the urban transformation of the peri-urban land. So the paper concludes that in view of the exclusionary practices ongoing in the development of the periphery of Lahore, we need definitely to reevaluate the set of values underlying our planning practices and also urban governance, and move towards integrating more ethics and morals in planning. And how do I come to those key findings in a way? So let me navigate you a little bit to the main building blocks of the paper. The main The main research questions that I look at are how processes of land appropriation and urban transformation in the periphery of Lahore operate, and what is their effect on local communities. Also, how different actors and in their interrelation with one another, shape their claims over land, housing, and services as they enter into complex, often contentious, conflictual relationships. And I do that by looking at 3 representative cases of urban planning, in which the actors I mentioned before are involved: public developers, public and private developers, the army, and the residents of the villages affected. The paper this way aims to contribute to debates on the land transformations and dispossessions, particularly which happen in the peri-urban areas in many of the cities today. And from a theoretical perspective, I combine access theory approaches, access assemblage approaches, assemblage thinking approach with access theory by Ribot and Peluso. The context in which the research takes place is this fast land transformation which is undergoing in the peri-urban land of Lahore, and the resulting displacement of local communities, with the resulting as well low levels of colonization and the construction of housing projects which are exclusionary and affordable for very few. This happens in a context in which land appropriation by different actors and land grabbing, which is often referred when it comes to violence as kabza in the vernacular language, is pretty common. And it also happened in the context where the overlapping planning institutions renders urban governance a very fragmented and inefficient arena. From a theoretical perspective, I use assemblage to look at these situations, to look at how different actors relate to one another and how they crystallize in particular situations, and how they also shift shift according to the situations. Access theory allows at the same time to shift from a right property perspective into more access approach, and to operationalize assemblages by looking on the underlying power relations, by looking at the access mechanisms by which de facto, besides having or not legal property rights, residents have the capacity, the ability to access housing, land, to maintain it over time, to control it, and eventually to transfer it on their own terms. I mean, if this is the case, of course, there are many cases in which the access mechanism shows that they don't manage neither of them. So I do that by, looking at, well, the main methodology of the research is based on extensive ethnographic fieldwork, which includes informal and in-depth interviews, as well as participant observation, which was combined with informal interviews in the shape of walk-alongs with residents and also with real estate officers, for instance. And I look at 3 representative cases, all in the periphery, which are marked in the map, in the north, in the east, and in the south periphery of Lahore. Sorry, I need to navigate between 2 screens. So I give you a couple of insights just on the 3 cases. The first one, it's about Badiatan, which is an exclusionary privately developed gated community. And when Badiatan was developed nearly 20 years ago, it displaced the villages which were standing there. And the process of urban transformation was based on very clear unequal power relationships between the developer and the villagers, but also on illicit and relational mechanisms of access. That means that the private developer instrumentalized its access to the media, to the army, to influential bureaucrats, to somehow bully and push or force people to sell their agricultural land and also their homes. It is still interesting to see, well, in this kind of situation, the access mechanisms that the residents had were outpowered in a sense or another. So most of them had to leave or shifted to the boundaries of what today is this gated community. It is interesting to see, nevertheless, that the porosity of the border between the gated community and the neighboring villages today can be considered as a path of possibilities. In a way, villages have been relations of exchange and labor with the exclusive housing community, and this has raised the desire for further development among villagers, and it serves them as a basis for articulation of further claims for better housing and service provision to the public institutions, to the public authorities. The second case deals with with the housing projects which are developed by the Defense Housing Authority, the DHA, which are under the control of the army and which are displacing, or interestingly enough, surrounding rural communities, as you can see in the map in yellow. So the access mechanisms of residents of the affected villages, but which they can manage to retain their lands or homes temporarily, are partially based on the legal rights, that's true, but mostly on relational mechanisms, which, for instance, they relate to contacts to media, to the courts, and to influential politicians to strengthen their cases temporarily. That means that they are actually just calculating that by these access mechanisms, they will just manage to control their houses and land for a little bit longer until they bargain a better price for the land. But given the authority, the capacity of the army to exercise force and so on and so forth, they have already lost the battle. So they are just kind of entering in this negotiation and cooperation with the army just to gain a better price for their land. One of the access mechanisms which is very prevalent in this case is that DHA is constructing impressive exclusionary housing communities, which allows them to legitimize the construction on the basis of modernity, urbanity, and high standards of development, which they claim to represent, in contrast to the maybe substandard villages that they displace. And this manifests a very important point, which is the higher value which is attributed to aesthetics rather than ethics, which trumps legal and ethical concerns in urban planning practices. And also, last point is that as long as the army is constructing and controlling more and more land, this is also displacing the jurisdiction under which the Lahore Development Authority, which is the public authority in charge of urban planning, can manage the city. So the army is kind of controlling more and more urban planning in Lahore. The last case, which I will just go very fast, is a gigantic project, which is this time developed by the LTA, which is the public authorities, along the Ravi River front. So it's basically just a strategic development plan yet. It has not yet been implemented, but it plans to develop an area which is almost equivalent as the built-up area of today's Lahore. And the first strategic development plans and documentations I had access to show non-existent access to residents' participation. No one has been consulted, even if more than 70 villages or nearly 70 villages plan to be displaced. So the access mechanism in that case, from the LDA to manage or to plan even such a massive displacement, is based on colonial instruments like the Land Acquisition Act of Colonial Time, 1894, and also its huge jurisdictions that itself has expanded over the last years, which allows the Lahore Development Authority to develop land well beyond the metropolitan area. And I think because of time, I will leave it here. There are many more, of course, more detailed explanation of the different access mechanisms implemented by the developers and also by the residents and how they come into contention. And that you will have to find it in the article. The conclusions, I already unveiled them a little bit in the introduction, so I'll leave it here. It's basically, I call, in view of these exclusionary planning tendencies, I call for this reevaluation of the set of values that we are introducing into our urban planning practices. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Helena. It's also a rich article which actually places again the notion of value of ethics in the domain of urban planning. So something which, due to the neoliberal approach and these issues which were pursued globally, somehow has been forgotten. And I'm very glad that you are actually putting this back in your article, particularly in this area, which is not that famous with the transparent decision-making and different, very extremely difficult actor networks to achieve in a transparent and participative manner. Thanks a lot once again. And now we proceed with the special mention in the category Gerd Albus Award 2021, which goes to the book, to the edited volume, by Thomas Speight and his editorial team, and it is about the sustainable land management in a European context, the co-design approach. So the jury evaluated particularly this book as relevant one as it tackles the narrative on sustainable land use management in Europe, but actually it derives upon the eternal, so to say, topic of collaboration and co-production of knowledge. And Thomas and his team, including the experts from different disciplinary domains, succeeded in elucidating this sustainable land use management approach actually to redefine urban governance in future. So Thomas, in this moment, I give word to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your words, and thank you first of all to ISOCARP and to the jury. We are very pleased to receive this Get Albers Award, and it's really a great honor for us. And I will give you a short presentation about the book. So I hope you see the presentation. Yes, is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So as you mentioned it before, we have to thank especially all the authors in the book. There are 33 authors in the book. And me and Tim Bachmann, Nadine Gasch, Sebastian Rogger, Christian Strauss, and Jana Tscheichler, we collected all the ideas in this book, which was supported also by Springer and the German Ministry of Education and Research. So what was the aim of the book? So we try to present and discuss more or less innovative system solutions for land management and governance. And this not only in a European context, the case studies are in European context, but all the questions and the answers we addressed, I think, are of general importance. So, and you can see on the right-hand side that this picture of a multifunctional land use, and this is what we prefer most, looking at the combination of ecological, economic, and sociocultural aspects as well. So we addressed two main questions: which development processes are required to resolve these growing conflicts about land and the competition about land, and more or less what are the solutions for that, and how can it be more sustainable. So, and what from our point of view is most important is this co-design approach. That means that especially scientists and practitioners are working together, and we will have the situation that not only the great planners do their job, but we have a mixture of actors, including different actor groups, to define novel approaches, and especially to involve the knowledge of the different actor groups in these co-creation processes as well. That means especially to look at the local and regional level. So that means refining the focus of the analysis to this local and regional scale, to integrate the knowledge of different actor groups, that's not only the interests of the actor groups, but specifically also the knowledge of the different actor groups, and also the historic knowledge and the local knowledge. So we also have to look at not only the plans, but also to the implementation of the plans and the evaluation of the plans. But we need for that also concrete objectives. That means, for example, a concrete number of reduction of soil sealing, for example, to gain sustainability targets. For this implementation, we need, we think, new institutional frameworks and governance approaches. And so in future, we have to have a new way of working together between scientists and practitioners, which we call a transdisciplinary approach in the end. So, and that's my short presentation about the book. And if you have, if you are interested in the book, please read it by yourself. So it's an open access book. It's free for all. Use the link to the Springer webpage and read it and give feedback. Use the ideas, and if you do that, it's, I think, helpful for all. Thank you all. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks a lot. Yes, with this, I'm going to conclude with the Gerd Albers Award section of our session today. And then we proceed with our future planning professionals, with our dear students here. So now we're going to dive deeply into their innovative works related to, you will see, many different topics. So this year we had in total a record number of 36 entries. So it is an absolute maximum. We never actually faced this before. And we are very happy for this. And we hope that in future we are going to continue receiving such number of entries. In that regard, I'm extremely thankful to the jury for this year award, composed by Tiark Gal, Divya Chopra, Zeynep Guney as the board member, Nasimir Manish as the scientific committee member, and our dear professor from Portugal, Fernando Brandao Alves, who actually had the difficult task to select the winning entries. But as this is given in two categories, so winner and special mention, the jury decided to bestow 6 awards in total, so 2 winners and 4 special mentions. And now we are going to proceed with the first one in the category of winner for the student award. So I warmly invite Maria Smolyakova and Lamia Ahmed for their proposal on Beyond Survival, which is about the building resilient communities in Bangladesh. So according to the jury evaluation, this proposal is actually something which is not only logical, not only innovative, but also realistic. So the combination of different environmental, social, political aspects in Bangladesh was successfully applied in this case. So Maria and Lamia, please go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, everyone. We are Maria and Lamia, and the name of our project is Beyond Survival, Building Resilient Communities for Co-Creation for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. With Beyond Survival, we mean having the opportunities for aspiration in life in spite of overcoming difficulties and hardship. Chapter 1 is the story of displaced people. There are 79 million people displaced worldwide. And we are focusing on the issue of Rohingya refugees, where in 2017, 800,000 of them were forced to flee from Myanmar to Bangladesh due to mass genocide. So we are dealing with the issue of how refugees can coexist in a country where there are already thousands of homeless. Bangladesh is a densely populated country where Rohingya refugees are living in extremely congested camps. And now Bangladesh is proposing to relocate 100,000 of them to a newly merged island in the Bay of Bengal called Bhasanchar. We will explore the possibility for the refugees and local IDPs to coexist in Bhasanchar with the care for the resources and material investment that went in.
The next chapter is the story of the disappearing land. The site is located in a river estuary where the islands continually change their shapes as erosion and accretion are a common natural phenomena. The blue highlighted area is the largest mangrove forest of the world, which not only stabilizes the coast, but also shields Bangladesh from the destruction of cyclones. So the estuaries are called the nursery of the sea, since the countercurrents trap sediment and nutrients for the habitats as a place to live, feed, and reproduce. To address the challenges of the low-lying landscape, people often practice floating agriculture, and to build coastal resilience, plant diversified species of mangrove in the shoreline. So in Bhasanchar, a whole settlement was built within 2 years. However, the settlement lacks diversity and has a huge contrast with nature. Even though it has basic services, it lacks livelihood support facilities.
Here we explore the framework for co-creating resilient community. The aim of the project is to establish conditions of coexistence for the Rohingya refugees and IDPs of Bangladesh, where they can co-create resilient communities in connection with the local context and the changing environment. We use the method of phasing design in 3 times, 2024, 2030, and 2040, following 2 main narratives, where in phase 1, we plan to establish identity through livelihood using floating vegetation and palm leaves for weaving. Phase 2 is about empowering local communities through collective knowledge, thus transitioning traditional techniques into innovative ones. And phase 3 is a circle system based on identity and future adaptability.
Now we focus on the overall design strategies for Bhasanchar. The first strategy aims to diffuse the rigid borders between the built and natural environment through co-creation, where a shared collective platform will empower people to co-diagnose, co-design, and co-implement. With the next strategy, we intend to break the monotony of the settlement, where one building from each block will be repurposed or reconstructed by the community. The elements from the deconstructed buildings will be reused in the new extensions. The new structures will be modular and built with local materials to address the challenges of future relocation. And finally, as part of increasing the resilience of the settlement, we propose mangrove forestation to generate an independent mangrove habitat. So this is the schematic master plan combining all the strategies. So in the first phase, we aim to create identity through livelihood by emphasizing on 2 of their traditional techniques. So for that, we are bringing 3 sets of programs, education, production, and leisure in 3 different scales to formulate an interdependent network engaging the communities, where the common space in the neighborhood will be appropriated by the residents. There will be programs such as Agricultural Research Institute, Weaving Workshop, Cultural Centers, surrounded by floating vegetation and nurseries, whereas common space, cyber cafe, and playgrounds will be scattered throughout the neighborhood. This is how the settlement might look in 2024. Now, we will be showing the interventions through the eyes of Fatima and Karim. Fatima is a young girl helping her mother to weave baskets in the common space that they built together. Here we can see Karim, who's working at the experimental floating vegetation in the lake.
And phase 2 is empowering through collective knowledge, which will help the community to adapt to the future changes. To achieve this, the programmatic set in phase 1 is transformed to the needs of the current phase. Thus, education is transformed into innovation through 3 core programs. The first one is a civic center of innovations that will serve as a place where people can have a scope for developing their ideas. The second one is a design school where the traditional building and weaving techniques can be researched. And the third one is an experimental prototyping platform where people will be able to test their ideas. Here, Karim, in the second phase, is participating in a workshop in a civic center and is able to use supportive services for launching his idea. And here we can see Fatima, along with the others, are working together in an experimental prototyping platform. The next is phase 3, coexistence with modern human commons. Here we are planning the relocation of the people from Bhasanchar. With the projected sea level rise, areas in dark gray might go underwater by 2050, and the mainland will be highly saturated with people. We assume that the relocation from Bhasanchar will take place in multiple areas. So our attempt is to be prepared with these cooperative steps, starting with planning for relocation and negotiation in 2030, followed by site selection, then disassembling the structures and transportation, and finally, co-creating community hubs elsewhere. So we plan that the materials and structures which are present in Bhasanchar can be disassembled and relocated. And here, Fatima and Karim, along with many others, are co-creating their community in a new space.
We looked at the island as a place with potential rather than a place of isolation. This was our attempt to imagine a society where refugees can have scope for aspirations in life and have opportunities to realize them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is truly impressive in terms of the work that has been done. So how long have you been working on this project?
5 months.
Yeah, as a master thesis project.
Even more impressive. I think some guys from the, the practice relevant to the relevant guys here sitting in the audience are impressed with your work. So I'm not coming from practice, I'm coming from academia, but I can say also that this is impressive in terms of the different methodologies that you used and how you actually connected this all together, speaking about the real issues which are happening there with flood issues. Impressive, truly. Okay, so now we proceed with another winner also in the category Student Award. So it's Afia Siddiqui for her project on the redevelopment of the Dumar Talab slum with incremental housing solutions. So it is a case study from India. Afia, you're very welcome to proceed and present your work now.
Thank you, Anna. Is my screen visible?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So first of all, I would like to start by expressing my deepest gratitude to the jury members and also the ISOCARP committee for actually recognizing my project and my effort towards the housing study in India. So I would like to start the presentation with a picture, as a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. And here we can see, this is one of the snapshot of the slum in Raipur, which is a city in Chhattisgarh state of India. And this actually shows the conditions of slums that are actually prevailing in the metropolitan cities of the Indian nation. Now, coming to the brief introduction about India, it is the second most populated country in the world, as we all know. And with an alarming rise in economic growth, it also faces the problem of affordability and thus the pressure of housing a lot of people. And also the story of Indian cities, which are a house for approximately 101 million slum dwellers of diverse and heterogeneous communities, also face an influx of migratory population in search of employment and decent living conditions, which are resultant of which are the slums. So giving a brief introduction about the project. So this project actually consists of a very definitive word in the planning realm, which is the slum. The basic idea of slum is that it is often used to describe informal settlements within cities that have inadequate infrastructure and housing facilities. So sometimes, so I would like, by starting the project, I imagine that whether slums in any country could be actually reimagined as an asset or a burden. So the thesis explores through that concept as well. Now, coming to the basic introduction of the site. So the site is located in the state of Chhattisgarh, in the city of Raipur, which is also the capital of the state of Chhattisgarh, situated in the central India. So this here shows the urban fabric of the Dumar Talab slum, situated in one of the most posh areas of Raipur. Now, the methodology for the thesis included 3 steps. The first step included the analysis of the area in terms of its growth and connectivity to the rest of the city. So the slum is located in one of the national highways and in close proximity to the national highways, and it has a varying social and urban fabric, as we can see through these maps. Now, coming to the second step of the methodology was a rigorous 2 months survey, site analysis, and included a lots of interviews and personal connection with the slum population to understand their social behavior and the relation with the slum that they lived. So according to the analysis, it was concluded that there were people involved in 5 types of occupation, and their different spatial analysis was also done. So coming to the incremental housing theme, as we can see that incremental housing is, in today's world, it is used worldwide in various parts of the across the globe, which is one of the most proactive approach to improve the informal settlements, not only in developing countries, but also in developed countries. So the site selection consisted of the issue identification, then in the best probable site, and then analysis of that site as well. Now, coming to the, so these are some of the photographs that explain the existing conditions of the slum and their varying social and urban fabric, and how streets play a very important role in the multifunctional spaces for the people, which are used for the working space, which are used for the children as playgrounds, because they don't have any open spaces. Now, coming to the salient features of incremental housing, we all understand that it is one of the proactive and dynamic approach, which has a scope of future expansion, speedy construction, sustainable use of materials, economic affordability, and designing according to the climate of the area. So the overall master plan was designed integrating the slum redevelopment approach in a contemporary manner, and also the incremental housing approach with inclusivity at its core. So this is the master plan. Now, the second step included the designing of prototypes of incremental housing, and these prototypes were designed in various manners that actually inculcated both horizontal implementation and vertical implementation to give a more clearer view to the residents, so that how they can implement over the upcoming years on the basis of their income and need. So these were the modules and the options created for the residents. So now, coming to the vision of the project envisions to follow the incremental housing approach towards the design process, which will meet the need and requirements of various age groups. So also, after the designing of the proposals, analysis was also done of how how implementation can be used as multifunctional spaces for people belonging to various occupations and various age groups. Now, after attempting the project, it was concluded by me that incremental housing for Dumar Talab slum aimed at improving and providing future increment solution to the inhabitants, both at the housing and the site level. So at the end, as planners, as planners all across the globe, it is our utmost duty to keep the residents safe and also to make world a better place. So I would like to end by saying that small yet consistent and dedicated efforts by the community and also by the professionals have the potential to transform and live in and give a whole new identity to such spaces. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Afia. And indeed, interesting and important topic for the case of India, overly populated. So this topic of incremental housing seems as a novel approach there. So now we proceed with the next student award, but in the category special mention. And this one goes to Xun Zhang and her team for the project on customized community regeneration. So about improving spatial diversity in the case on a very specific community in Nanjing, China, where different kind of tools and skills, soft and hard, were implemented together to boost the community regeneration based on real participation of the people. So Xun, please proceed with your presentation. We look forward to it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. Much appreciated to have this opportunity to report our research and designs with you. Customized community regeneration, improving spatial diversity based on digital portraits of population. Case of Yuejianglou community. Globally, China's urbanization enters a phase of equality and efficiency. The renewal of public spaces is becoming a key element in achieving sustainable community development. Yuejianglou community is a typical high-density living community with traditional Chinese extended family form of neighborhood relationship. The community is dominated by old residential buildings built in the 1970s and 1980s, with attached courtyard spaces being the main types of public spaces in the community. However, these precious public spaces are in conflict with the daily activities of the residents and have become lost spaces with inefficient use. On the one hand, most of the current courtyard spaces either assume a single function or become unused fragmented space due to their marginal location and closed nature. On the other hand, the complex characteristics of heterogeneous population in the area implies the possibility of conflicts in activities and the needs of diverse groups. In order to solve these problems, our design concept is customized space design based on digital portraits of the population, which emphasizes the inclusiveness and organic fit of public space for diverse groups demand, so as to recreate a highly inclusive, diverse, and communicative place for daily leisure in public life. First of all, in response to the heterogeneous population and diversified characteristic needs, we built a digital portrait framework of dimension construction, data acquisition, mining, population clustering, which realizes the efficient mining of residents' multidimensional characters. And then we have achieved a refined outline of the population characteristics, specifically in 3 dimensions with 5 characteristic indicators. Based on the above characteristic indicators, cluster analysis is performed. Finally, we identified 6 typical groups, namely diverse community type leisure male youth, single urban type middle-aged males, single urban type female youth, diverse community type elderly and teenagers, diverse community type female group, and zero leisure long-distance commuters. On the basis of the results of the portrait, the project uncovered the common spatial demands of typical groups for each courtyard space. Furthermore, small data interviews with identified typical groups was organized, and the design toolkit was customized to match the needs of typical needs. Furthermore, we can generate various modular combination plans by aggregating the common spatial needs of multiple groups. Type Node 1 is public courtyard. In the design of this type, considering the complexity and the variability of its group composition, the project customized the flexible and variable toolkit of social gathering facilities to adapt to the diverse functional needs of different residents at different times. For example, by placing tree tables and community stages in the spatial nodes near the food market, the project has turned it into a dynamic gathering place to serve diverse groups. Type Node 2 is semi-open courtyard. The project implants several dynamic action movement lines, as well as several small-scale static leisure modules, which not only increase the diversity of leisure opportunities for community-type leisure residents, but also compensate for the lack of time for long commuting residents to enjoy public space in the community. Type Node 3 is residential courtyard. In the design of the courtyard space of the residential community, the toolkit of personal amenities are mainly customized to satisfy the fixed basis travel needs of typical groups, and the courtyard space is divided by implanting functional modules, and the existing linear trail is turned into a continuous, safe, and accessible linear fitness place to create connections for different typical groups. To sum up, considering the population diversity and fairness based on population portrait and modular customization, this project develops a typological spatial design strategy that covers different groups of people, thereby transforming the space from a specific activity scene to a place that catalyzes the occurrence of diverse social activities. It provides a new approach and perspective for renewal of communities in international high-density urbanized areas. Much appreciated and farewell.
Dear Xoan, thanks so much to you and your team. It's really nice to see how actually this design toolkit was used to wisely transform some conceptual presumptions to the reality. So very nice approach. Thanks a lot. Then we proceed further with Moza Abhad Alobadian, the winner in the category Special Mention for his project High, Rethinking Qatari Neighborhoods and Willings. So Moza is actually speaking about the identity of the Qatari neighborhoods, but also the very contemporary issue of thermal comfort there. And she provides some also very practical solutions for this area. Moza, please, floor is yours.
Is my screen visible?
Not yet. Can you try it now? Yeah.
Is it working now?
Great.
So first, I'd like to thank ISOCARP for this opportunity. And also I'd like to thank my stakeholders, including the policymakers, experts, and the Qatari community for believing in this project. So to start with, Hay is an Arabic word that stands for both livable and neighborhood. So basically, this is the scene what we have in Qatar. Qatar has been influenced by the Western regulations, especially after the British colonization. So we have been developed to have, instead of courtyard houses, internal looking, to more like an outward looking houses. So this has developed several problems, especially that we are a social conservative society. This has developed car-oriented cities, lack of pedestrian walkways, lack of public realm, and then luxury houses that varies between 900 to 1,200 meters square. So this means larger footprints. So this project comes up as a form-based coding movement to redefine the neighborhood in Qatar. This works in both directions, in the planning wise, and in the housing typologies. So this will, both of the ways will be focusing on the conservative Qatari society and how to preserve the privacy concern we have here in Qatar. So basically this would enhance the neighborhood vitality, the neighborhood relationships, and the Qatari residence houses. So the proposal is to work on the Islamic city identity, where the mosque is the main core in the planning, and then it will be surrounded by the main needs, and it will be most walkable. And then we'll have smaller block sizes, and then each block would have an outdoor communal space to enhance the neighborhood relationship, and then served with mixed use environment. And then I would also propose different houses typologies that works in a diversity, especially that we are different family sizes, and we have an extended family houses concept still in Qatar. And then in terms of the houses, I would also reduce the plot sizes with a courtyard house that preserve their privacy, and then each would have a maximum built-up areas. So this focuses on the nuclear families, Qatari extended families, expertise, and expatriate and domestic workers. So this is like a medium density neighborhood. And this what I have recommended as a program is to have a Jum'ah mosque, which is the main mosque, which is the main placement in the neighborhood, and then another smaller mosque, and then several mixed-use units which can serve kindergartens, gym, community center, grocery stores, and retails, which serves the neighborhood itself. And then in terms of the houses typologies, there are 4 houses typologies that I will talk about them later. So basically the planning of the neighborhood started by studying the previous neighborhood or the old neighborhoods in Qatar. I've started studying it out until I've served it in this way almost. And then I have placed 2 nodes, which are the mosques within the neighborhood, which would be walkable within the 100 square meter of the neighborhood, totally as a 200-meter radius, which also have been based on previous researches on how mosque used to be the main node in the Islamic cities, especially in Qatar. And then I have proposed shared residential streets within the places with communal gardens also. So this is basically the neighborhood. These beige colors are the mosque. This is the larger mosque, which is the Jum'ah mosque. And this is the smaller mosque. Usually Jum'ah mosque is used the whole week. And then especially on Friday, we have like an occasional Muslim that takes a place in a prayer that takes up in the mosque. That's why it is larger and it's almost the main. While the other one is almost hidden because it's more like a local house, local mosque. These areas are the mixed use surrounding the local mosque. And then the others are the houses, different houses with a central courtyard or a communal space within the center. And these larger places connect the plots together. So as you can see here, these are the red mosque within the circulation, the walkable distances, and then the houses surrounding the place within the mixed use. These are the networks and the public spaces. I have also added majlises, which are public male spaces oriented especially for male. These places, I have placed them within the main street or the shared residential street. This would preserve the internal spaces of the houses to be most like a family oriented. And the parking will be surrounding each of the buildings. So as you can see here, this is the Jum'ah mosque, almost used as the main core in the building, in the planning, and then the local daily mosque. These are the communal gardens within the houses, as you can see, used and preserved by the residents themselves. These are the shared residential street. They work as public realm and also used as public spaces, where pedestrians mainly are the taking role of these places. This also brings us to that this neighborhood could be used as a prototype expansion in the future. As you can see, this is the main neighborhood. It has been replicated over. This would make another central area, which can be used as a Eid mosque, which is another Muslim occasion occurring 2 times a year. It has to be open and large. And then the others 2 could be the mosques replicated. Here, these 2, we have the local mosque placed at the end of the neighborhood, preserving the central area to be the plaza. While the other one, they have Jum'ah mosque. So people from this neighborhood can use this neighborhood in case of the weekly occasion in the Jum'ah mosque. So these are the houses design, a 10-meter courtyard house. 10 meters mean that the width itself is 10 meters. So it's most like a smaller version of the houses, moving from 1,200 meters square into like 200 to 400 meters square, which is a big difference for the Qatari residents. This also preserves the privacy and of the people living in the space, as well as their male and female segregation within the house itself, using dynamic louvers and the layout of the place itself. This is a 2 courtyard houses for more larger families. This is another, which is an extended family house, which I love to work on to preserve the extended family concept we have here in Qatar and almost in the Muslim societies. And then this is another house typology, which is a shared courtyard apartment, which has different apartment typologies within a shared courtyard in the center, leaving the central place with maximum visual connectivity and the circulation area. This keeps the people from the apartments most related to each other, and this also gives like more like responsibility towards each other. So to conclude, HAI works on different aspects of sustainability, including economical, social, and environmental, by minimizing the urban expansion, the building costs, and also adding some local businesses into the place, lowering the car usage, maximizing the pedestrian. This would create more livable society with maximum social coherence and unity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Moza. So I'm quite sure that this was a great teaser for the guys who are going to visit us lively in Doha, in Qatar, in some 10 days soon. Thanks a lot. And with this, we proceed with the next one. So Munawar Irfan as the next winner in the category special mention for the project fostering symbiosis between ecology, community, and urban development, particularly focusing on the flooding issue, so relevant across so many places globally. Munawar, the floor is yours.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yes, we can
yes.
hear you.
Yeah, I'll just quickly share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Just proceed, please. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Thank you very much, ma'am, for the introduction. So, hello, everyone. Today, I'll be presenting on fostering symbiosis between ecology, community, and urban development with water systems as the primary determinants of eco-sensitive urbanism, where I'll be speaking about my urban design thesis project and my learnings during the same. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Munawar Irfan, an urban design graduate with a background in architecture. The rise of urban development in the past century has been accompanied by massive destruction of the ecological system, which in turn negatively impacts the resilience of our cities to the extremities of climate change. With urbanization and the repercussions of climate change intensifying at alarming rates, an increasing number of communities worldwide are facing greater threats from droughts and floods. But this was not the case in the ancient Indian cities. Traditionally, the natural water system was revered and maintained regularly by the local community, which was dependent socially, economically, and ecologically on it. But today, in the fast-growing peripheries of Indian cities, haphazard urbanization triggered by development pressures is not only causing environmental degradation, but is also weakening the interdependencies between community and ecology. To conduct further inquiry, the hot tropical city of Madurai, facing various environmental issues such as urban flooding, groundwater depletion, and contamination, was studied. The seasonal rainfall of Madurai has led to the development of very elaborate traditional rainwater harvesting system, well integrated with the ecological system over centuries. It is the ARI system with a network of water bodies linked through a system of surplus channels forming a cascade. During the pre-colonial times, Madurai was majorly an agro-based economy, and due to their deep-rooted social, economic, and ecological values for the ecological system, development pattern was sensitive. However, during the colonial rule, modern water system interventions such as dams, borewells, pipe connections, etc., internalized the relationship between local community and the water system, thus making water bodies readily available for manipulation and control. During post-colonial period, with real estate driving the economy, the city was growing as a large monolithic urban agglomeration, converting the water bodies on its way into industrial, residential, institutional, or transport infrastructures through systemic encroachment. Due to loss of these socio-spatial associations with traditional water system, the local community started to use it as spaces for solid waste and sewage disposal and real estate development, and to satisfy short-term political goals. To conduct further inquiry, Kodikulam, one of the rapidly transforming peri-urban areas in Madurai, was selected and studied in detail. The site is blessed with a system of seasonally inundated irrigation water tanks connected by overflow channels. The site faces issues of biannual flooding, groundwater depletion, and encroachment. Based on overlapping the various layers of ecological conditions, building densities, open space structure, and the ecological issues, 6 major ecological zones were identified. These were further studied in detail, and it was found that lack of sensitivity in the development framework and regulations towards the ecological system has caused the various socio-ecological issues. This is evident through its various acts, such as laying out of roads blocking the natural water flow, development with a uniform building density throughout, rapid increase in the amount of permeable ground cover available, and the building bylaws being determined based on road width and plot sizes only. The transformations in the associations and interdependencies between the local community and the traditional water system were studied along with the morphological transformations. It was found that changes in the composition of the local community from indigenous communities to newer communities has led to the loss of positive socio-spatial associations with the water system. Thus, this in turn led to lack of sensitivity in the development of built environment towards the water system. This is evident through its various aspects, such as lack of direct accessibility and visibility to the water edge, privatization of land along with the water edge, the orientation of buildings to face away from the water system, etc. The thesis envisioned Kodikulam as an ecologically sensitive neighborhood, which is also socially and economically sustainable, healthy, and climate change resilient, where people's everyday lives revolve around symbiotic relationships with water. To integrate sustainable waste management into urban form, a network of integrated waste processing centers are proposed. Each center has a catchment area with a set of community-level compost parks, which also double up as a groundwater recharge areas, while also providing alternate livelihood options for the less privileged groups. To integrate sustainable water management into urban form, a network of water harvesting tanks, which also double up as community recreational areas and farming during the dry season, are proposed. These tanks are proposed at the lowest points of the catchment areas, with these tanks being fed by network of bioswales. These are planned according to the natural water flow lines and topography. To enhance the functioning of the ecological system, a network of blue-green ecological corridors were proposed, and open land along the water edge were reserved for farming, biodiversity park, and public spaces. To integrate movement system, to integrate movement system with the ecological system, an empty track was proposed along the water edge, connecting the important destinations and fed by a pedestrian cycle movement network, which connect the communities and destinations along the water system. To foster adaptive urban growth through water-sensitive development framework, residential areas were proposed according to ecological conditions, with medium density along ridge areas, low density along valley areas, and no construction for a buffer of 50 meters from the water edge. High dense work areas and commercial areas were proposed along urban edge. Mixed-use development was proposed along major neighborhood level corridors. Spatial incentives were provided through FSI in exchange for lower ground coverage and permeable ground cover to facilitate groundwater percolation. To enhance and create socio-spatial associations along with the water system, placemaking was proposed on the important urban nodes that were identified at various levels. A set of guidelines were proposed for the upcoming development with respect to the treatment of water edge, density of development, open space design, and building use along street edges, such that groundwater percolation and flood control is optimized while also enhancing associations of the community with the water system. Open spaces that are productive, floodable, and public landscapes were proposed and placed keeping in mind the site's ecological conditions. The built functions proposed, such as markets, school, community facilities, etc., are placed and designed such that they enhance the associations with the water system, and continuum of public open spaces and urban form is also achieved. Indigenous vegetation was proposed according to the ecological conditions and street or open space experience that was intended to be created, thus becoming an integral part of the urban experience. During the dry season, the sunken plaza is used for sports, recreational, and community activities. The dry biosphere serves as a source of fodder for cattle rearing. During the wet season, the sunken plaza is inundated and helps in recharging the groundwater table. During wet season, when the channel is inundated, it attracts migratory birds and water-related recreational activities, and mental health of the stakeholders in the urban edge is also enhanced. During dry season, it is used for urban farming by marginal farmers and for cattle rearing, while a part of the channel stays inundated even in dry season in order to sustain the aquatic ecosystem. While the bottom-up interventions focus on strengthening the symbiosis between the local community and the water system, the top-down interventions foster ecologically sensitive urban transformations by tackling speculative real estate development pressures, thus enhancing the functioning of the ecological system while also meeting the urban needs. Future research should focus on how the incorporation of circular economy can help in creating environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable communities and building the resilience of our cities to climate change. More detailed research into the identification of filling and unfilling of gaps in the existing water governance model is required to gain a more holistic and grounded insight to addressing the issue. So I'll stop with that. For further inquiries, I can be contacted through this email ID. Thank you once again, everyone, for this great opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. This was also very impressive in terms of actually the comprehensive approach that you applied in terms of the various analyses that have been used and to the very same quality design interventions. So congratulations once again, impressive.
Thank you, ma'am.
And finally, we are coming to our last presentation today with the Abhishek Day's project on restructuring the speciality of performative culture. So it's, from my point of view, a very interesting approach because it places the value of local identity and local culture and finally speaks about the place-based approach, which is nowadays promoted in so many different documents from global to local policies. Abhishek, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. Is my screen available?
Yes, yes. Just put it in full screen mode.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abhishek Day, and it's a great opportunity and honor today for me to present my thesis in front of you. My topic is restructuring the speciality of performative culture by manifesting the expression of work-based clusters in the case of Kumortuli, Kolkata. An artisan only becomes an artist when he receives the exposure for his piece of art. The global handicraft market was valued at $718 billion in 2020, which India contributes to only 2% of it. Indian art and handicraft sector comprises 6.8 billion artisans, making it the second largest employment generator of our country. But the numbers are decreasing every day with the deficiency of funds, technological upgradation, market linkages, and institutional frameworks. There is clearly a lack of possibility to sustain. The work-based clusters perform in a function-sustained physical setting, which is eroded due to the lack of initiative to bind their progressive future with their inherent skill sets. New generations deviate from their assured livelihood because our cities lack the opportunities to boost its creative clusters. Hence, the aim of my project is to facilitate the creation of a contemporary cultural precinct with recognizable spaces for showcasing traditional skills, promoting culture-driven economies. Few of the objectives would be to delineate such existing creative industries and identify approximate precinct, to provide guidelines for this regulating built fabric and enlarging the spirit of belongingness. Few of the inquiries would be on spatial dynamics of a value chain.
I'm sorry if I just can interrupt here. So could you play the slides? Because we don't see the slides actually. So we see only the covering one.
Is it so? I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to the full screen mode, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Is it now? Is it there now?
We now see the 5th slide, for example. Yeah, if it's okay.
Do I go back? Do I move a bit back?
No, please proceed further. So I think you will cover it during the presentation.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
A few of the major important inquiries for my project is inquiries about the spatial dynamics of a value chain, the key players, their supportive regulatory frameworks and morphological settings. Progressive aspects about the performative cultures would be about their aspirational networking and socio-cultural associations, and commodification of culture with the hierarchy of spaces through segregation of their domestic and their work life. Kolkata is called the cultural capital of India, despite the lack of an expansion in its creative industries. As the government has made an investment worth 27.5 billion USD in 2019, promoting small-scale sectors to generate more employment. Kolkata's work-based clusters have formed this metropolis into an agglomeration of related industries. They have cities-level dependencies on material logistics, human resources, and capital flow. The map to the right shows the proximity to city-level markets. Yellow demarcates the inflow of dependencies, and red marks the outflows. My cluster particularly.
Sorry, we still cannot see the slides. Is it possible for you to make the presentation in a full screen mode? Then you can change the slides easily. Or to control actually how it's. Yeah, I don't know what is happening. Maybe you see it, but we don't see it. Yeah, now it's on the 7th.
Is it there, ma'am?
Now it is, yeah.
Is it changing in full screen?
No. But okay, it can stay like this, but you can just need to follow, your talk with a number of slides which are there. So just to follow what you're talking about and what is shown on the screen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently in the 7th slide. Is it there?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, please proceed.
Yeah. So my cluster on focus would be about Kumotuli, which is the sculpture makers cluster. Is it there? Yeah, there are 3 pictures on the screen right now. Is it visible? So sorry.
No, you need to move it. Move to the next slide, please. Mm-hmm. Now it's there, yeah.
Yeah. So Kumotuli, it's a cluster of 258 artisans dwelling over a government leased tenancy land of 3.22 hectares. They recently got their land rights from the Tenancy Act 2019. The average number of people per family is 5 and studio area is 36 square meters. There are both permanent and seasonal workers there. They are dependent on the river edges for their bathing and material transfer like clay and bamboo. Major logistic issues are difficulty in transport of materials and related economic lacking spaces to the enhancements. The river remains inaccessible because of the railway edge. This is a typical typology of a studio cum living. Ground floor is the studio and the mezzanine being used for living and storage. The entrance porch becomes a liminal spillover space. Physical issues mainly consist of lack of ventilation, sunlight, and dilapidating habitat space. Economic issues like instability in income and a slump period of around 5 months. Social issues like no space for the seasonal workers and loss of community feeling. To deal with this seasonality, the successful self-driven art carnival were hosted to bring in tourists and commodify their art and performative skills. Niches in between studios act as shared space and display. They act as way guiders for tourists. So, city-level strategies would be firstly to stitch the broken river edge at points for the daily life transactions, everyday spaces, and passive recreation. Connectivity to the city-level transit modes like trams, metros, and city thoroughfares needs to be strengthened. Vision of my program is to promote a sustainable city for work-based clusters to grow within the urban setting with improved quality of life. This yellow marked Kumotuli precinct will develop a live-work unit module for the artisans integrated with the social and physical infrastructures. Existing proximal warehouse can be used for the temporary accommodations. Defunct chunks of buildings in oranges can be reassigned with institutional land use and develop community-based requirements with urban regeneration policy, and activating the government schemes to provide financial and technical skill upgradations for the individuals. In very brief, the strategies would be to include incremental housing with live work possibility, increased share stake, and enhanced communal living, an institutional framework for exchange program, and incentivizing heritage readaptive use with defined heritage trade. To design the live work envelope, average household limit and studio space requirement is used in two possible sizes, varying in depth of structure. Type 1 has no offset and sloped ceiling with light permeable surfaces based on solar calculations, and type 2 leaves an offset of 3 meters from the main access road, creating a niches as a collective unit. And with this combination of two types, clusters can be formed from courtyards for domestic life and external edges for the commodification of culture. Now, these are the very site-specific strategic moves, which includes vehicular connection, which is restricted to the sub-arterial road, which are marked in maroon. Neighbored roads with the clusters are pedestrianized, and two vehicular spots, two parking slots are allotted at the very entry point to these clusters. The entrance is changed and aligned with the strong presence of the landmark heritage temple with the pavilion for temporary display of work exhibits. Niches along housing blocks creates way guiding to dissipate the penetration of publicness into the community shared courtyards. The existing block to the right is skinned with the contextual character and refunctionalized as commercial spaces for craft-based industries. International student exchange program with institutional framing provides a fusion and innovation. And internal courtyards act as temporary spaces for additional seasonal artists who might come. The docking point at the river edges should be designated with spaces for related commerce as transaction points for temporary stacking materials. Yellow marks the demarcated spots for stacking points with various stretches across the main street, and defined logistic ring for unloading material is designed connecting the major 6-meter roads. Wider pedestrian-friendly paving to be introduced on the riverside and railway edge. Section 1 and 2 shows the docking points and the pockets for ancillary value chain. Section 4 shows the stacking points, and 5 shows the drop-off points. The visual corridor to the bathing ghat is accentuated by the existing temple to be surrounded by social plugins for healthcare clinic, daily retails, women skill upliftment centers. And the subway connecting the social pocket to the riverfront breaks the railway barrier in a safer way. This demonstrates the public institutional framework. The Material Technology Center with a commercial frontage to the plaza integrated with the Enterprise Development Institute to commodify local art. Floor space and building edges with a canopy to be designed for student exchange program for a mutually benefiting workshop space. This provides an experience to related field and can develop new form of expression through art, hence sustain Komotuli and its future. So by this, I conclude by stating that with a successful pilot of such program, with these few guidelines, a new mission can be developed to sustain the performative culture of our nations. Thank you very much.
It happened. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So with this, actually, as we are far beyond the schedule, I would like to thank you all. So thanks and congratulate you once again to all the winners in all categories. It was a great pleasure to have you all with us today. I also already look forward to the special award session, which is going to be scheduled for those coming in person in Doha for the 10th of November. Unfortunately, I'm also not going to be there, but my very close colleagues are going to welcome you properly. And yeah, thanks again a lot for all the contributions. And as always, we look forward to receiving much more quality entries in the years to come. Have a great evening, night, and all the best to you. See you soon. Bye.